let's get into the divorced women situation and the single mums, because I've heard
Sure.
I've heard you say, brother, when if a brother was to ask you to marry or to consider marrying a divorced woman, then, and I think the quote was, you would tell him to run for the hills.
No, that's taking out of context. No, the run for the hills part was if a sister has been married and divorced multiple times. If she's been married and divorced multiple times, run for the hills.
So what, 3 times?
It's a good question. What number do we put on it? I would say 3 is a deal breaker for sure. 1, you can make an excuse for, to maybe something went wrong. Twice, you start questioning. 3 times plus, you can't have that discussion afterwards. I'll tell you why. Well, in fact, no, I'll allow you to ask me questions. Please.
Okay, yeah, okay. So after 3, you've put a sort of a generic limit on us, 3 divorces, and she's.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to be pigeonholed into that. But we can say, generally speaking, as a.
But you just said 3 divorces, and it's out of the question for you. Then it's.
I don't want to be pigeonholed into that, but I will say this.
Well, I'm just trying to repeat your words, bruv. I'm not trying to pigeonhole you. I'm just trying to say what you just said.
Yeah, the more divorces a woman has had, the less of a candidate she makes to consider her for a successful long-term relationship.
And that's what you consider generally for all men, or is that just you're talking from your experience?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that question. Now, you asked, is it for all men? Okay, firstly and foremostly, it depends on what type of man you are. Now, a lot of men are struggling to find even one woman, are struggling to find even one wife, and he'll be very happy to take, frankly, anything that's got a hold. Just, I hate to be crude. Anything that moves, it's gotten to that point. That's how difficult it has become for some men. If you are a man who is struggling to find a woman, to find a wife, and this sister presents herself to you and she happens to just have 4 ex-husbands, but you don't have any other options available to you, you don't meet that criteria of high value, you're not a man who many women are attracted to and many other men wish they could be like, then, you know, bro, if you got to do what you got to do.
Okay, so now this brings me in. So now we'll get involved a little bit now, because it's the narrative now that I'm a bit against as well here. Because when you're saying things like anyone with a hole, it's disrespectful terminologies to use for a woman. They're much more than that. Okay, and when you're saying that this man isn't high value, so he'll take anything, like this woman here who's been divorced, or this woman here who has kids, is now the last resort. You're not high value man, so you'll marry a low value woman as a low value man, and these type of things.
A woman who has kids, who has been married multiple times and has kids, she's low value. Make no mistake about it.
Well, no, I do make no, bro. No, I have to. No, bro. Please, don't tell me to not make no mistake about it, because what we're talking about here is women, human beings, and it's our responsibility as men, as Muslim men, to love, protect, and provide and support women. Not to use terminologies like that openly. It's a disrespectful terminology, bruv. Low value women and things. I just don't rate that. Okay, so let's just change the language on that a little bit, please.
Aisa, let me explain. First, again, Aisa, out of respect for you, Akhi, because you've seen me growing up as a child.
No.
You know, I'm not going to discourse with you how I would discourse with the regular person, out of respect for you. But I would kindly ask that you reflect that back to me as well, so we can make this a smooth discussion.
Okay? But you're using terminologies that make me uncomfortable, bro. You know what I mean? So
okay. With this,
so I would just like to
discussion. So let me explain what I mean. What makes a woman most desirable to a man? When you bring it down to it, I know taqwa, iman, I get it. I'm with you. But when it comes down to it, what are men most attracted to in women? What are the 2 or 3 things that you would say? Yalla, 2 or 3 or 4 different things. What is it?
For me, communication, compatibility, and compromise, bro. I mean, there is no relationship without communication. There is. Good. Yeah, okay.
So communication, compatibility, and compromise. I bring you a sister who is good at communication. She's compatible with you. Yeah. And she can compromise, but she's ugly. You taking her?
Absolutely.
I just said she's ugly.
I don't, bro. If she can look, looks and the physical aspects of the woman, they are important to a point, but they're not the only thing, bro. Because once you're with that woman for 6 months, a year, 2 years, that beautiful woman starts to look very normal to you. So you're used to her. You know what I mean? So the personality and the communication stays with you. Fine. That's the connection that you have with them.
You say you would take her, fine.
Alhamdulillah.
Most men, if he is not physically attracted to a sister, to a woman, he will not marry her.
So what makes you physically attracted to a sister? I mean, apart from the pretty face and everything else, what's the connection that makes you attracted to a woman, bro?
This
Is it just physical?
What makes women most attractive to men? Okay, a woman who is in her prime years of youth, beauty, fertility, she is going to have the most amount of options available to her. It's a simple fact of life. A 20-year-old woman has more options available to her than a 60-year-old woman. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Of course.
Right, which means that a 20-year-old woman is more desirable, generally speaking, to men than a 60-year-old woman is.
Because most people at 60-year-olds are either... Sorry, brother. Most people
Yes, Akhi, tafadhal.
Because most people at 60-year-old are either married or grandparents or they're widows or they're, you know, so the pool of their thing is less. Obviously, when you're younger, you're more desirable because you have the whole, inshallah, the whole life in front of you. So, of course.
Right. But it's intimately tied to what men value the most in women. Again, after Iman and Deen, and I know the Muslims will want to get, I get it. But after that, what are men most attracted to in women after all that good stuff is how she looks. Is she fertile? It's pretty much it. It's pretty much it. Of course, we have the compatibility and all of that. But if she doesn't pass the eyeball test with most men, there is no other discussion to be had.
Okay, so what we're saying there is most men. So there's a caveat. There's a condition. There's not all men think like that, brother. And I'm not just saying this for.
I deal with most men.
Okay,
I understand that there are exceptions to the rule, and I respect that. But I don't deal with whataboutism. We have this notion of whataboutism. What about this? But what about that? I get it. On a bounce of probabilities, that's how most men will operate. Are there exceptions to the rule? Yes.
Okay, so when you say, you know, I've never used the word whataboutism, but there is men out there, brother, and you know, you may very well, you know, judge a woman's purely on her physical looks, and it's nice to have a good-looking woman. I'm not saying that I would deliberately go out and choose a woman that wasn't attractive, but there is a lot of men out there, bruv, that would look at the personality of the woman over the looks of them, because looks will fade. Looks will get. So what are you going to do when the looks fade? Just keep remarrying? I mean, it's not always an option, because if you're not high value enough, you can't keep remarrying. So you have to.
I'll answer that question. But we got 156 live viewers in here right now and only 6 likes. Ladies and gentlemen, please get those likes up and sub the channel as well, please. If you haven't subbed the channel, hit the like, because it will help with the algorithm. Jazakumullah khair. I will answer your question after I've gotten through this super chat. My apologies, Akhi Isa. Akhi, there's an article I sent you on Instagram. I wasn't able to post it. Jazakallah khair. Dude Desi, I appreciate the $20 super chat, and I will check that, inshallah. Yes, so your question to me, if I'm not mistaken, Isa, correct me if I'm wrong, is what happens when a woman is no longer in her prime years? Then what? Are you just going to toss her to the side? Was that your question?
No, it wasn't. That was a statement. It wasn't necessarily a question, brother. I said, maybe I said it as a question, but I said generically, what happens when? I wasn't necessarily asking you what happens when, but generally, what happens when that woman loses her look? Because the man will lose his looks too. You know, he's not going to be young forever either. So there has to be more substance to the relationship than just I fancy her. Because in Jahiliyyah, I've had some very attractive girlfriends, but they were would have been terrible wives going forward. You know what I mean?
No, you're absolutely right. Listen, I will take a less attractive sister who has a beautiful personality all day long over a dime, a 10 out of 10, who's got an absolutely awful personality any day of the week. But the less attractive sister, okay, in comparison, we should say, to the dime, to the 10 out of 10, she still has to pass the eyeball test. Because if she doesn't pass the eyeball test, if I can't physically get hard for this sister, then how am I supposed to be intimate with her? I can't. She don't pass the eyeball test. Now, fortunately for the women, because a lot of sisters might get upset, but hold on, you know, I'm not a Beyonce or whatever it is. I'm not a supermodel looking. Sisters, don't worry, men are quite simple. We need something, something shwaya, you're in shape, a little bit of shape, you look decent. That's pretty much it for most men. So don't get too hung up on how good do you need to look. There are actually other things that we need to discuss that are arguably more important than that.